This is Bryce VanHoosen, and what you just heard was the Toneforge Menace VST from Joey Sturgis Tones. What I love most about recording guitars in the 1980s, the 2020s, is that there's no shortage of excellent tools out there to make your guitar sound its absolute best. The Toneforge Menace VST is no exception. With this awesome plugin, you have the sounds of molten metal right at your fingertips. So now I'm going to give you a rundown of the tones and presets that I used to create this piece that you just heard. Let's step over to the console and take a look. So starting with the intro, and this is what is called the Bryce Lead 2 patch. Essentially, I wanted something that was going to give us a precursor to what was about to kick in here. So basically, I have no EQ, and I don't have the limiter turned on either. Settings pretty basic, almost a rhythm sound, a little bit of a scooped mid thing going on here. For these examples, I did use a custom IR cabinet. This is a V30 SM57 thin sounding Celestion from the fine folks over at Celestion. I chose to use my own IRs, at least for the leads, just because they're a little bit more familiar sounding for me to mix in here. So I am a creature of habit, so beware. But basically, I really like the sound of these condenser or this 421 mic here. These sounded really nice, and they sounded kind of similar to the more round sound that I was going for with this IR here. So basically, that by itself, including some Universal Audio tape echo and Spaces, which is a great reverb plugin from the fine folks over at East West. So that sounds like so really kind of verbed out there. And then once we're kicking in full force here, here's essentially my main lead sound. So the reverb is off, the Galaxy Tape echo is on, and really this is just kind of a very sort of basic sounding lead tone. So I don't like my leads to sound too nice. This one I used a neck pickup with a high boost in the controls on the guitar itself to kind of give it a bit of a single coil sounding vibe. So I wanted something to really kind of bring that out. The drive pedal, basically a little bit more drive, a little bit less gain. That should be a pretty familiar looking setup for most people, I would imagine. And again, using a custom IR. So it's really awesome that the Toneforge Menace allows you to use your own IRs, so that's always a nice plus. So basically what that sounds like by itself is so as you can hear, it's kind of a little nasty sounding just by itself, but once you throw that into a mix, it really cuts through and sounds absolutely wonderful. Moving on to the rhythm here. Basically for the rhythm, we have sort of a similar kind of sound. For this one, I used the JST cabinet with the 57 off axis to give it a nice sort of woofy, more bassy sort of tone, but it's still very bright, and I noticed that it cuts through really well, so it sounds really good and has a lot of attack for a good rhythm tone here. I kicked on the EQ for the rhythm tone, upped the mid frequencies quite a bit because I really wanted that mid-range punch to kind of bust through and sort of hit you in the face more or less. The gain is a little bit lower on the overdrive. The drive itself is a little bit more up. That should be another kind of overdrive TS-808 sort of setting that should look pretty familiar to people. So that by itself sounds like real great, real kind of nice. It hits all the right frequencies, I think. You don't want something that's too bassy, and you don't want something that has too honky of mids, but it still has to kind of cut through and sound distinct against the barrage of additional instruments. For the solo, this is the last patch that I came up with. This is the Bryce Solo. Again, a little bit of tape echo on there. That's kind of what I usually do. Nobody likes a naked solo, am I right? So for this, I pulled out all of the stops. We've got everything going here. So the limiter is on, a little bit of gain reduction here. The parametric EQ is on also. I wanted to really emphasize the mid-range frequencies. So you can see I have these boosted just a little bit with a bit of bass put back in there as well to kind of give it some of that body that would otherwise be taken out. But essentially what I really wanted was something that busted through and sort of stood out. For a solo, I mean, really you want every note to be heard. So that was what I was going for here. So as you can see on the Toneforge Menace controls itself, I have the mid boosted a little bit, the bass turned down, the treble a little bit lower from where it was, and the presence is up also. So for the driving gain settings on the overdrive, we're kicking those up a little bit more and pulling a bit down on the tone to kind of roll off on some of those super sharp edges, but it still sounds a little bit in your face. There you go. There's an absolute naked solo by itself. All right, and there you have it. The Toneforge Menace VST by Joey Sturgis Tones. Check it out for yourself. All right, this has been Bryce VanHoosen. I'll see you next time.